Okay, my name is Richard Planas, and I'm over here in Spain. I'm going to cover some basic Kenpo techniques for you. I'm getting ready to do a series on tapes on problem techniques, or what techniques that people have problems doing or understanding that cannot be learned from a book. You need a visual or hands-on picture of the technique with the reasonings why and how come everything is done the way it is. And that's one of Mr. Parker's sayings. He said, "He who knows how will always be the student, but he who knows why will become the instructor." So when I teach, I always teach by the rules and principles of motion. It's not just the way I do it. I have reasons and rules and principles to back it up. So I'm going to cover some of the gift techniques, and one is broken gift. Let me go Carlos in here. When we work the gift techniques, now first of all we say, why are we punching somebody's lights out that's shaking hands? Well, it's not the handshake, it's what the intent is. And this I heard happened to a UFC fighter in New York a while back. He was in a restaurant and a guy tried to pick a fight with him to impress his girlfriend, to make a long story short as the story goes. And at the end, he watched the guy who was going to leave, and he went up to shake hands with him and said, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to impress my girlfriend. And when he did, he pulled him into a punch and knocked him down, and he took off running out of the restaurant. So even a UFC fighter, this can happen to, people that it shouldn't normally. But anyway, every move we do has a reason and how come we're doing this. So it's not the handshake that we're concerned with, it's what we see the intent of the other hand. And this is all in how much telegraph you get. Now, before we start, this is something that I like to point out always, is we're learning self-defense, and that means the bad guy gets the first shot. It's like the cowboy movies. I say, okay, the cowboy movies, the good guy wore the white hat, the bad guy wore the black hat. The good guy could not draw first. That would make him the offensive guy. So we had the black hat had to draw first. So that's what we have, is the bad guy moving first. And how much read time do we have for that, and what can we figure out we're going to do about it? When we're working here, what we're getting is, if this happened and I went bam, there's nothing he could do about it, because action's faster than reaction. And what I did is I moved correctly. Direct straight line motion, no telegraph. If I went back like this is, oh, now I see what's up. And that is what a telegraph, I always explain to people what a telegraph is. A telegraph is improper motion from your opponent. That's what gives us read time. And I always make sure people understand that. It's the improper motion. So working here, let's come from this side. If we go to different scenarios of why we grab the way we do, when we grab up, let's go back to this side for a second. We have our thumb in the back of the hand. So some people try to do this technique incorrectly and put the thumb over the top. Now this is fine, but it's a different technique, and it doesn't allow you the margin for error that we have in the Kenpo system. Margin for error is positions and moves that we do to cover the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? So we put the thumbs together in the back of the hand. So we say I can grab underneath with the thumbs in the back of the hand, or I can grab over the top with the thumbs in the back of the hand. So either way, I want thumbs in the back of the hand. And this relates to a wrist lock that we use in a lot of different techniques. That's one of the things. The original name of the system was Kenpo Jiu-Jitsu. The Kenpo is the karate part. The Jiu-Jitsu is the hands-on, or what we call contact manipulation. We have much more contact manipulation than we have the free techniques, so the striking and kicking our opponent into position. We contact manipulation and maneuver them into position. So let's go back to this side now. So when we have the read, when we put the hands on top, this gives us our wrist lock that we're after. If this punch was coming in, I'd say, whoa, I have a chance to check this, but I have a wrist lock. Here's a contact manipulation that I can turn into different things that we want to do to control our opponent. If you grabbed underneath, you couldn't do anything like that. You'd have to make a hand change. So here, and there's 7 things we do to a technique, and we consider in Kenpo the 2 ways you get hit in any confrontation, intentionally and unintentionally. So if this was happening and the guy was coming in with a punch again, if I did this, I could get headbutted real easily, and just for him coming in and catch me with a headbutt. See, it's because we're inside the center line. I have this hand in control, I have this hand checked, but his head is right here. And we kept moving, and a lot of people in England, I'm told, But a lot of guys over there, that's one of the main things they like to do is headbutt in fights. So I'm wide open to a headbutt, and if I don't take that in consideration, I'm leaving a part of Kenpo out. So to work the technique the way I would do this, if that punch was coming in, I would headbutt myself and maybe add the knee too, because that's in center line as I made the block to go into the technique that I worked before. But I don't want to leave this hand as a loaded weapon because I'm still in the center line. That's what we call an inside technique, is between the arm. That is well in range and then hit me with again or whatever. So I would want to control that. So let's go back to this side. So as this was happening, if I was going, I would do this and add my head, but control the arm. And then I have my takedown. So slide down now. And I have my arm break and possible then into whatever manipulation that I would want to do to take these things in consideration. Other things like this about Kenpo to be different than a normal technique like a hand position. A lot of systems reach up for the same thing. Thumb in the back of the hand, pull the hand off his second move. Third move, my hand comes in, and they gave him 3 beats to clock me with that hand. So there's a lot of lag time or dead time in here. So the way we would change this is, okay, we know this isn't our concern, that's our concern. So I move away from that hand, I catch this hit and zone that, turn this over, then I go into my lock, and I add the safety position and fill these missing beats that we have. So this is just things that we think about in our system. So this is the why we grabbed the way we did. Okay. Now let's go back to, let's say this out. The grab, when we step in, I can step inside, I can step outside, or I can step what we call on the line of entry. This allows us margin for error and things we want to do with our feet. There's times when we want to be outside, there's times when we want to be inside, and there's times we want to be on. And this is a time when we want to be on, because a lot of systems do this. There's some of the Filipino systems that I've trained in. This keeps our man in place. A simple thing to do if you move in is the guy backs up, just back up, just shuffle back a little or whatever, and you lost the technique. You can't do it. So when we move, we step on the foot and say, hey, he's not going to be able to step back to kill the technique, so this is going to keep him in place. So this is, again, this is what we call on the line of entry. So when we step in, we're going on, and I want to push my hands down. There's another common mistake on this technique is raise both hands up. There's really nothing going on. Nothing going on. Okay? People think there is, but it's not. This is basically like long kimono. I'm going to weld the hand in position and have my pressure come to the elbow. So it's like long kimono done in a different way. I rock my elbow up and my hand down. The teeter-totter effect. And that gives us the snap in the elbow. So this, again, if he was going to punch, it cancels that hand and throws that hand back out of play, and I cancel his width zone now, and this is the outside rule because now I'm outside the arm. From here, I want to go back to the inside, as written in this variation. This is the base move technique. So I'm going to start my crank, I'm going to crank him down. So I take the right hand, so you see this, the right hand as far as I can get it. See, turn basically from palm up to palm down is what this is going to happen. Then my other hand will take over and continue the motion. So you see, you go back to palm up, and this starts the pressure to get him to start going down. Now it's not done in the position of the timing I just showed, it's done in conjunction with your other motion. So when we get here, this is all happening as you start this move. So when I step back to the 730 corner, it pulls him into either my back knuckle, which is the standard variation of the technique, but I like to use the elbow variation. You never let go with both hands, and you keep a better control on it, and to me it's a much better weapon. But you have A, and we'll call it A and B, A the back knuckle and B the elbow. When you do, from the side, when you do the back knuckle, you have to let go. You have to let go with this hand and put this back knuckle in. And it relies on the grab being done with one hand. If you do the pull, there's no crank, because that's what keeps the joint free and lets it move. And you have a much stronger weapon with the elbow. Okay. Well, we'll stick to straight variation first. So if we had the break come in, we had the crank and the back knuckle. Again, I don't want to move to the center line, be between his arms, have two loaded weapons here. That he goes right into a bear hug right now on me if I didn't get him, and I'm back into having a problem again, which I don't want to have. So when I do this back knuckle, you get rid of the arm out of the zone as you shift and you hit the eardrum. And what I did here is walked in the center line. This is a principle in Kenpo called seek the center line. This is where the targets are. You know, groin, the head, everything is in center line, and what I didn't have from this angle. Plus, when I move to center line, you notice that it walks the hand in and gives me backup mass in the strike. See, so that's another one of our power principles, backup mass. So from this move, this happens, and now the elbow comes in. Let's go a little angle here. And this is a glancing wing shot. Comes down the maxillary hinge and comes off the point of the jaw. And it's done with backup mass, where we drive through the person. A lot of people shift and reverse here. And I've had this happen to me. When I see people do that, I say, oh, don't do that, don't do that. I can speak from experience. I did that move. Do this with me, please. Know the technique? Yeah, he's doing the technique. And right from here reverses. And I just, boom, just dropped. But it dropped here on my ankle and broke the top of my the tarsals, or carpals, tarsals, metatarsals, metacarpals, hands and feet. Broke these for me, and I said, oh, I was hobbling around for a while, so I say, that's why we say we've changed a lot of moves over time to cure problems like this. So we say, if we stay there and walk away from him, we don't want to do that because things can happen, so we drive them away from us. So again, when I teach the technique, I get to the last position, I say, okay, now just pretend this is what you're doing. See, where we're just shuffling in, using your backup mass, and you're moving the person away from you. But you happen to be hitting with this elbow as you do it. So you drive them away, and they don't stay here and maybe drop on your foot. So we'll put the whole thing together slowly. We'll go in with the break. See, we get the line and the pull, the back knuckle, where the arm hit, and put the shuffle through. And this is a technique called broken gift, as written by our original manual. So that should clear up a lot of the things about that technique. Okay, now what I'd like to do is cover some other variations on this technique. You know, when we wrote the training manuals, I say back in the 60s, before the written manuals, there was many variations of techniques. You had some of the systems had, like, you know, the snake and the elephant, A, B, C, D, E, or even up to G. But there was nothing written down. When we wrote the manuals, most people, we tell them, you see how thick the book is now with just one variation of each technique. So if we wrote all the variations, we'd have a set of encyclopedias, we say, for each belt course, and we weren't going to write that much. We got, say, writer's cramp from what we did. So there's many variations of techniques that, you know, go along with this, and you should learn as many as you can. And this is based on the clock principle. Like what we did in the technique that I did on Carlos, is we started on the 612 line, then we shifted to the 730 line, and we shifted to the 430 line and finished from there. So we worked the back two angles of the triangle. We said, well, what about the front two corners? Those are lines 2 and the 9 and the 3 line. Well, not all angles are usable in all techniques, but we like to go around and say, hey, what angles are usable and what can we do from there? So I want to point some of these out. So let me call in Sergio here. When we did the technique again, we'll look at this as our 612 line. And we started, I went into the 612 line, I dropped back to the 730 line, I shifted to the 430 line, and I finished at the 1030 line. And we said, okay, what else can we do? Well, let's come to this. Yeah, this side's fine. We have our 1030 corner, our 130 corner. This corner is usable, but it's a little bit difficult, and we've got to get out of what we call stone statue syndrome to do that. So I'm going to skip that one right now. But when we go in, we have the same start. So, okay, from here, instead of stepping back to 730, I'm going to step off and up to 1030. When I do, I'm going to crank this hand up and drop this elbow into his ribs. Now, if you can see that on camera, but we'll see it from this way. When I come in and catch my break, and I do this move, I'm dropping this elbow in. So from there, I say, there's my 1030 corner. I'll keep moving on that. I have my break and put the person down in a control position. So this is just a variation on it, being able to go to that corner. Another thing, let's go back to this side again, please. So we had, in the first variation, we had the back two corners of moving to 7:30 and 4:30, and now I moved to 10:30, and I said, well, I can still come back to 4:30 to finish it a different way. So working the technique, I come in, touch my brake, I come in the elbow, I say, hey, there might be something here, I just want to do something different. So I come back to 1:30 or 4:30, and the person goes down. And this is being easy on it, not doing a hard, heavy crank where you slam the guy down, twist the arm, and with your positioning in the knee, his head should bounce off your knee. It looked like an accident, but you know it's not. It's on purpose. It's like a good pool player knowing where his opponent, coming back up, knowing where his opponent's going to fall or where the ball's going to go, and you're shooting for shape and say that's where it should be. Just like the crossing talons technique. When I step across and slam this guy down real hard, see, his head should come off your knee. So you slam him into the knee, you can even add it as he's coming down, but you want his head to hit your knee. So that's like an insert move that people don't see. So this is the same. Let's try this a little smoother here. Once you get into the brake position, you come off, you do this crank, down. See, he almost did that. He almost hit his head on my knee there. And again, you could add it with some travel of your own to put that insert in. Okay. So that's the 10:30 corner and finishing on the 7:30 corner again. So just again, variations in the technique. I wanted to add another variation on the technique. You notice when I said we worked the technique, we worked in the 612 line, then we dropped back to the 730 line, shifted to the 430 line, and then finished on the 1030 line. The second time variation, we used the center line, we went to the 1030 line, and we finished out again at the 430 line, double up on that angle. So I want to double up on the 1030 line here, which really not really a double, but it's going to finish again on the 1030 line instead of the other line. So I'll use Ingmar for this. This technique involves a sweep. I'll show it from the two angles here. When we, again, go back into the version, catch the arm brake, step off, put the elbow in. From here, I could go through to 1030 and finish, or I came up to the 430 line to finish with the crank, but I'm going to stay on the 1030 line. When I do this move, and this involves a hand change and a sweep, I'm bringing this hand down, putting it back in my opposite hand. I'm just doing a hand change on this. I take it from one hand to the other. You have to maintain control. I don't want the arm free and moving around to do whatever it wants to do. So as this happened, this is a torque technique. I use the hard twist on this, and that's what makes my sweep come in. Step down, and you'll notice, let's use the other side. That's where the brake comes in. So because the brake, you do the elbow. You don't even have to add the elbow if you want to, but I'm going to do this slowly. When you make the change and the sweep up, you step down, and when you hit the deck, see their own weight falling, puts the elbow across your knee for the brake. So you say, well, I didn't quite get it. You can top switch to catch it to make sure, and then put your knee in as a finishing move to make sure, and you're always controlling the head so they can't turn into you on this. This is another, ending variation on the 1030 line. Okay. Okay, now I want to get into not a contact manipulation technique, but a striking technique. And again, this is where we bat or strike or hit our opponent into position and hope it works. Now, hope it works means everything's laid out in the ideal. It's supposed to happen this way. But I talk when I do a lot of my seminars and classes to, I say, how many people here are pool players? And everybody raises their hand, and most people do. I say, how many times have you been on the table and you have, it seems to be the perfect, easiest shot in the world. Oh, I can make it with my eyes shut. And you just lie, and everything looks good, and you shoot it, and it doesn't happen. You say, I can't believe it didn't happen. Everything was picture perfect. Well, that can happen because it can happen. That's Murphy's Law. Anything that can happen will happen. So this is what we're looking at when we bat or strike a opponent into position. He should go there based on rules and principles of motion, but it might not happen. So we're going to show things about that and things that rules and principles, how Kenpo is based on rules and principles, and how we take different parts of that into consideration. So I'll bring Carlos in again, and what I'm going to work on is flashing mace. Flashing mace, we say, breaks a rule that you have to break if you're going to study the rules and principles of motion. And when we do this, I show it different ways. Come on this side. The Kenpo is based on the circle and the three things we do to a circle. We stay on the circle, reverse the circle, or cut the circle in half. So if you have a circle, you say, okay, this is the circle, and I start it, I can stay on it and complete it, or I can start the circle and I can reverse the circle. Or I can take the circle and cut it in half. You're like, look at this again, it's a pie. I can cut it in half many different ways and many different angles. So I'll use a hand here, it could be a foot, but to represent, I'm going to come in with a right uppercut, and I like to show this motion. So if I start this move, say this is a circle, and I can stay on the circle, and this comes into a strike. So that's staying on the circle. Now if he does the same thing again, I have to have my other hand here to get this out of the way, but then I'll reverse the circle and catch him this way. The other principle is, hey, I cut the circle in half. See, and this is what we do. And most every time you do motion, you look at what we're doing, and that's what we do. Stay on the circle, reverse the circle, or cut the circle in half. So to stay on the circle in different ways, if he comes in with this, I don't have to take my eyes off of him. But if I did a horizontal circle, I have to take my eyes off of him per second. So we look at all these different lines, the diagonal lines, vertical lines, but the horizontal line is the one we're breaking here, where I have to take my eyes off to come on this side again. But we do things by insert moves to maybe give us this lag time for this to happen, and we add insert moves. I'm going to put the insert in here that I like to do. Come back on this side again. With this right punch, it's normal when this right punch comes in that we step off or up or back or whatever you do. People ask this all the time, do you step up or back on this technique? I said, yes. I don't know. How hard was he moving in? How much was he pressuring you? That's for you to read and you figure out. We say all techniques start from the first stance, not the transition, how you get there. So if I step up with my left foot, I'm in left neutral bow. If I step back with my right foot, I'm in left neutral bow. So it doesn't matter, it's just how much is he pressuring you. But when this happens, we come in and say, okay, I want to catch this, and basically do the break from glancing salute. So I catch the break, and now he has pain. Oh, that hurts. And it cancels that thought process. So that's the first pain. The second pain is this back knuckle in the temple. That's going to make him say, oh, that hurts too, and hold his head and keep his hands up. So the first one's the pain to cause a thought cancellation. The second one is to cause that, keep that going, but it's really to open this low line that we want to make sure it stays clear. And that's where I put my spin. So let's come back to this side. You can see this in slow motion. So I take this break. I say, okay, when I hit here, and he holds his head, when I spin through, this lets me put the back knuckle in the rib or kidney area that I want my second shot to come in. And don't forget, we have our check in here. See, so this is staying on the circle, but you realize, okay, to stay on this horizontal circle, I have to break a rule and take my eyes off my opponent. Yeah. So that's coming in there. Let's work from this angle. So you can see the rest of the technique. Once this happens, and you do this move and you put the strike in, now, when you hit him in the head, he wants to hold that. When I hit here, he wants to tuck and start to hold that. And we know that, so that's going to open the high line. So when he starts to drop his hands, we keep that going with our double hand drop here from the hip and keep him bent down and broken with that knee check. And that's the flashing mace of the name of the technique where this comes in. We're loaded in the south 40, and we come up with our punch that's a vertical line. A common mistake on this technique is what I call little buckaroo, and that's change the line. See, we always load to the zone you're going to work from. I don't want to change that. So if I loaded and I went vertical, I don't want to change that, come out horizontal and hit horizontal because I didn't load my hand for that zone. I have to cock it to there as a separate move. See, and we do that line on different techniques. So when we do this technique, we drop him down, and that puts us well in the clear to come back up on this vertical line. See, we don't, again, we don't want to change this and go out around with a little pulling loop. That's, again, the little buckaroo like the cowboys in Texas. That's where I got this from. That's where they related it to, was the little buckaroo. So this is the flashing mace. When we start this, we say, okay, this is the top side of the circle with my hand. And we do this in techniques like in Form 4 with thundering hammers. We'll start it with the hand, we'll finish with the hand, or start it with the hand, finish it with the foot. And that's what we like to do here is an old standard variation. Once this comes in, I spin, catch the scoop kick, and then you're headed for the barn. So you have the hand doing the top side of the circle and the foot doing the bottom side of the circle, all in one spin. So anyway, that's flashing maze basically as written. Then we say, now, let's try not to break the rule. Because, again, of the 7 things we do with technique, add, alter, insert, prefix, suffix, rearrange, and delete. Delete's a big one. And alter, Mr. Parker used to say. Delete means leave things out. Don't take chances. And the shorter you keep a technique, the more chance it has to work anyway, and that's what we like to work on. So we just like the shortcut this with the up, down, I call it. So it comes in with a punch again. I catch my up, and I say down, and up, and he goes down. Up, down, up, and he's the one that goes down. And you don't take your eyes off the opponent. All you're doing is just reversing your hand. So you say a half a circle each time. I don't add the back side of the circle. I say, okay, front side, and just stay on the front side. See? And that's on the vertical line here. Okay. So again, slow motion. Okay. We go up, down, up, and he goes down. If you wanted to, because it's wide open, we have this move as he goes down. Say, let me add my kick, because that's an insert added to the motion. So that's what's called a shortcut normally on a technique. Leave out moves that you don't really need to do, and it has a much better chance of working in the shortcuts. Okay, now I want to stay with that same theme of talking about how the 3 things we do to a circle. And again, flashing mace stayed on the circle, and we had to change our, position and break the rule of taking our eyes off our opponent to do that. And we have another technique that reverses the circle and doesn't take your eyes off the opponent, working that horizontal line with different targets. And that's flashing wings. So I'm going to work this, I'm calling Ingmar in here. We'll work this from the front here. So, well, you can use this angle here. When he comes in with the punch, I loaded my hand high to hit a high target. Well, now I can do the same thing, but I drop my hand low, or chamber it low, because I'm going to hit a low target with the elbow. Now I drop this hand out of the way so you can watch what's going on. It wouldn't do that. I know that's a loaded elbow. I'll keep my check in there, but we're just looking at the strike goes through here. So this elbow passes through the same way that this hand passed through. Now we talk about our ranges, just to explain this a little better. We make sure that our students understand there are 3 ranges. Okay, the 3 ranges are long range, is effective kick range, extension of the leg effectively, and then the hand, full extension of the hand effectively, like here, won't do anything. It has to have focus and penetration. So you have to be a lot closer. And your close range weapons are your knees and your elbows, and we have to be in close to use these. So that's what we're working now. He's coming in with this mid-range weapon, the hand, so we have to shuffle this elbow through. And now a common mistake that people do in the technique is they stay in front, meaning they keep their body in front of the opponent and don't really get in position to use their hands because they're behind. You have to work in front of yourself. So I always talk about there's 3 positions here. In front, then you get behind for your margin for error position, and then you get back in front. Now let me show that from the side here. We have a technique. First of all, to show you what we call a backbreaker. Opponent comes from the side with the right punch. We'll do our parry off, and we slip an eye poke in as we move behind the person to get in position to work the technique to slam him down on our knee. So we have to be queued up or dead square behind him to have this happen. So that's how we check our position in flashing wings. If he comes in and I shuffle in and put this elbow, if I couldn't grab him and step back and put him on this knee without changing my position, I'm in the wrong place. So that's the margin for error on this technique. So let's come back to this side again. So we started, and again I said, all right, from flashing mace, I hit and stay on the circle and go through, or I can load low, put the elbow in and reverse the circle, and catch him back with let's work a little more angle this way. Catch him with an angle of the elbow under the scapula. And this is the same as leaping crane. In the crane, for those that know, when he comes in, And a little more angle over here, please. When we catch the kick down, the person could be about ready to fall forward. And there's no problem because we want our opponent down anyway. In fact, we could help him down and push him down and go into leap of death. But we said, no, I want to see if I can save the technique because we're reloaded. So we sting this kidney and we try to get that result of shocking those nerves and bringing his head back and say, good, that saved the technique because the head's really what I wanted with the elbow. So the shot in the kidney is the saver that brings the head into position. So that's at the lowest line, that's him on his knees, and now we work the same thing. Come from this angle, please. When we shoot, if you ever had a shiatsu massage, you know, when they put the elbows in the kidneys or the nerves under the scapula, you get the same effect. If you have somebody putting that in there and digging in like they do, it hurts. Well, it's the same idea. We come through this elbow, and, okay, this shot makes the head come back and give us a cleaner shot with that chop. That's what it's for. It's exactly the same as the crane. But this, the travel on it, is short, and we are buffed a little by the shoulder no matter how you look at it, so you don't rely on it. And then the left hand we consider minor anyway. We don't rely on that. So what I say here, and I teach it, I make people understand, we have two basically minors. The first elbow is a major, then we got another minor to set up the major, but the travel to the target says this might not be major, and we don't consider our left hand major anyway because again you have the possibility of being buffed by the shoulder, which will happen. So we come into the last shot, which will get the job done, and that's our chop to the throat. So when I teach the technique, I make people understand the first shot and the last shots are the good ones. The rest are fillers. So let's look at it from the front. When he comes into the punch, we have the same thing, elbow, elbow, and I go chop, and this is moving back in front. We're checking the arm, putting this chop in, checking the arm, and now we're wound up in the South 40 again for our good shot that will, however we want to deliver it, possibly in the fight, and you could add the sweep with that to double the force of the takedown or whatever. So look at the whole thing. We go block, elbow, elbow, chop check, and then with the move as we head for the bar. Okay. So this is, again, the whole purpose to show this was don't stay on the circle, because we have another technique to point it out that does that. If I go elbow, elbow, that's another technique, storm technique, and that's nothing but flashing mace. If you cut your arms off here and all you had was elbows, then it would be elbow, elbow, instead of back knuckle, back knuckle. So this is just making sure you see and understand the same motion used with the different principles that we use them on. So that was flashing wings, basically. Okay, I want to go into a technique now that a lot of people have trouble with for different reasons. And always, when I teach a technique, I teach it two parts. I teach the technician's part and I teach the dummy's part. And I say, okay, show me the technique, now show me the dummy's part. If you dummy correctly, that says you understand the technique and you understand the methods of angles of execution and what's supposed to happen. Now, this we call a Braille technique. Braille, you know, is how blind people read. Let me call Carlos in here again. Now, when I do this, when I teach a student, I say, okay, I'm going to go behind you, and I'm going to grab you different ways, and you tell me the difference. I say, I'll grab like this, or like this, and then I'll say, I'll grab like this. So what is the difference?
More fulcrum?
Welcome. The fulcrum, yes.
Yes.
Because you feel here, the first time you only felt my hands.
Yes.
So you know that my arms are extended. But if you feel my forearms with my hands, you know the person is close because you have to have a bent arm to do that.
Okay.
So you know where they are. So we have techniques for at range or extension, and we have techniques that are done close. See, and that's what we have here. And I always ask people, I say, how many people have done circling wing and wound up hitting the guy in the leg with a hammer fist? And I say, well, there's a reason for that. I want you to do circling wing, see what happens here, nice and normal and slow. Go ahead. Keep moving, and this is what I mean. You don't have a clean line of entry. He says, boy, I wish the guy was here where I'd have a clean line of entry. Well, there's two reasons this didn't happen. First of all, I let go, and I relate grabs to the rodeo. When a guy grabs, there's different reasons why somebody grabs. Basically, they don't know how to fight, so they just grab and hang on for dear life, or they do know how to work some contact manipulation, and if they do, they're going to hang on. See, so this technique, and there's many in the family that use what we call the mandatory step. We have to make our opponent take a mandatory step. So I say, okay, turn around again. When I grab, I didn't grab to let go. So the first thing I do when I teach the technique, I say, don't move your feet at all. All I want you to do is shift, watch me, shift your shoulders hard like this and throw that left shoulder forward. Okay. Go ahead and do that. So that gets me off balance and breaks my base right away. And that's rule number one, or the unwritten part of rule number one. Rule number one we say is the only one that really gets a number, that's establish a base, and the unwritten part is then break your opponent's base. So this is what he has to be doing. So when he makes that shift and steps in the 730 corner, that makes me take this step. And now whatever he does, he will have a good, go ahead finish, clean line of entry, no reach problem with the groin, because I took that mandatory step. See, we have this in many techniques, cross twigs, squeezing the peach, there's lots of them that makes the opponent take that step to open the center line. See? So that's what we have here, and this is called an outside to inside technique. We started inside. Inside is between the arms. Whether he grabs you this way, you're between, or whether he grabs you this way, you're between. So in his move, when he does it, go ahead and do it again. Now he's outside. Notice my arms are over here, and he's outside. But when he does, he came back inside. And that's for you to decide if you want to do that or not. And if he's hurt, naturally you can do it. But it's still iffy and chancy. You get covered in this hand, but this hand comes in from the blind side, and you could wind up in trouble. So I like to stay outside, and especially when you get into weapons, you always want to stay outside. You're safer outside than you are inside. So when I work the technique, I work it different ways, but let me work the technique straight first of all. Come back behind me. You're grabbing me now. Okay, when he grabs to hang on, and I shift those shoulders and get him off balance as I take the step. Now another common thing, while I'm thinking of it, is an improper position with the right hand. Many people have done this and missed the arm. And then you have what-if variations. There's no problem when you work these. You have these shots that come in to keep these lines covered, but you have to learn them and be able to do it instantly. So Mr. Parker had a principle. He says, in the States we had the Excedrin headache commercials. And he said, I got Excedrin headache number 57. And he put his arm over his head, and he said, basically what you're seeing is the right hand go over the top of your head and touch your left ear. He'd always make us do that, touch your left ear. So when he grabs, if I touch my left ear, this hand will always come over the top, and put in a couple of insert moves maybe for you, the elbow and the back knuckle, as we're going to make our trap and grab of the arm. So you'll have much less chance of missing that arm. See? So anyway, let's do it from the beginning again. When I do this move, I come out and I catch this and put my poke in. I open the center line back up. So, okay, I come in with my hammer, my scoop kick, and head for the barn. But again, that's going from inside to outside to back inside. I like to stay outside. Again, it's a variation on the technique. This is the principle of the technique, is doing like this. This is the principle. Get behind him, don't stay in front of him. So when I work the technique, it's basically what we had before. When I get in here, it says, okay, putting this knee in as I step behind, forcing down, and we have the arm break again, and the control fall, and it's very short and sweet, and you stay outside where it's safe. So these are things, again, that we used to teach consistently, and many, many variations of a technique, instead of just the one that's in the book, which happens to be the one from the form. So, you have your choice of the two, and you should learn them both and practice both. Okay, I want to go into another technique now that gets into weapons. Explain something about the system again. When we do our forms, which is the library of the system, everything's laid out in the order of danger. The ones and the twos are what we call your basics and exercise forms that teach you the rules and principles of motion, about reverses and opposites. And then 3 up starts your technique forms. So the technique forms are laid out in the order of danger. You say, what is your common everyday self-defense that's non-life-threatening, situation? They say, okay, well, it's grabs, kicks, and punches. I say, that's right. And of the grabs, kicks, and punches, what is the least dangerous? And everybody generally says grabs. I say, yes. Okay, why? Well, there's no live weapon. It's a static weapon. The guy's just grabbing, You know, it's not a fist coming fast and furious at you to take your teeth out or whatever. So we don't have that, and we have plenty of lag time and a read time to figure out what we're going to do about it. When you get into weapons, like Form 6 is last, we say it's a defense against a gun, knife, and club, because it's last, because you have to be very good to take on a weapon. And again, it's your choice to whether you want to try it or not. I've had students of mine use it, the weapons techniques, and come out very well. I've had other students use it and lose eardrums, get, you know, gunshot blow off the eardrum out. They still came out all right, but that happened. I haven't nobody that's been killed or hurt real bad that I can think of, but I've had a lot of them tell me that, boy, they realized that maybe they shouldn't have tried what they did. But I said, well, it's a personal thing. That's what's called self-defense, what you yourself can do and what you decide to do at the time. We had that old joke about give all your students a dime and say, call me if you get in trouble. You know that can't happen. You know, I'm not going to be around in time, and neither is a cop. You're going to have to do it by yourself. So we talk about rules and principles of motion, working with the gun, and things you have to take in consideration. And so we call Sergio in here, and we talk about a normal gun technique with the gun in the back. So let me get my trusty 12th degree black belt maker here. A little SIG 220, whatever it is. So I said, okay, you turn around. The guy comes up, and it's a common, let me explain this first of all. A lot of things got written down in the manual from the form transition, but the way it's written down in the manual is not even really the correct form transition. It's worse than the form transition. We also say in the forms, you know, we don't only teach you what to do, we teach you what not to do. People say that Kenpo forms represent a fight, and I said, no, there's plenty of things in there that can't be a fight, because a lot of techniques cannot be done the way they're done in the form. If you think about them, so that just nullifies that. But rule number one is, say, rule number one in most systems, that's establish a base. And we have a rule in Kenpo that would say, you never get in your own way, you never go around yourself. So if you hold this position and you do a rotating twist like you see a lot of people do, a little side pressure here, and there's nothing he can do but move away. He doesn't have a base. And now if he did that move, okay, I'm going to do that again, and say he got away with that, he's got to come around himself. And you have a lot of backup mass going there. Very short and travel and very short and backup mass. And you're really tight on the arm because you stayed so close. Okay, so we say, okay, we want to fix that. So again, this is sort of like the form transition. So the way the technique is taught, or the way it really is the person comes up and sticks a gun in your back. Okay, now first of all, I want to point out something else that Mr. Parker used to do all the time. Let me use you again, please. You're standing here, you're facing that way, and the guy comes up, sticks a gun in your back, and you move. Go ahead, move. We did that at a police station one time when they wanted us to come down and look at what they were doing and giving them an evaluation. And Mr. Parker said, I didn't like that. And why? And that's what he did. You know, when the guy turned around, he had his fingers in his back and a gun in the other hand. And that's what we call in America, look before you leap, or leap before you look. That's the saying, is look before you leap. So if he does that to me, he sticks his finger in my back, and I move up and say, oh! So I have plenty of range and plenty of distance, but the gun's in that hand, and I'm in big trouble maybe. So the problem is not looking, and this is standard in a lot of techniques. Put the gun in your belt back here. To point this out a different way, come behind me, grab me in a bear hug. Crashing wings. This happens a lot in crashing. Grab me. This happens a lot. Ooh. I said, what are you falling down for? What are you falling down? I said, you know why you fell down? You don't have eyes in the back of your head. You didn't look down to see where his feet were. See, nobody's going to grab you without having a good base. So when he grabs me from behind, I know I don't have, grab, please. I know I don't have eyes, so I look down his feet and say, oh, there's his foot. So I know where I need to step to get around that foot without tripping over it. If you trip over the foot, you just didn't look. So this is the same. See? So when he's got that gun, let's do it this way. Come behind me this way. First of all, I want to know it's a gun. Now, I remember an old Superman episode in the States, and they did it just for the movie. But Clark Kent did this to a guy that was tailing him, or tracking him, and he stuck out behind him and put his finger in his back, and he says, hey, Lefty, or whatever the guy's name is, what are you following me for? He says, I'll tell you if you get that gun out of my back. He says, that's no gun, it's my finger. And Lefty says, oh no, I know steel when I feel it. See, that was just to make Superman seem like Superman, but really it's a finger. See? So if somebody sticks something in your back and says, stick them up or whatever, you want to check it out. Say, hey, what's your problem, guy? Oh yeah, it is a gun, and it's in his right hand. Take a look. You know, try to get a look at it. So hopefully, he says this, or you might expect to see this. But this puts your hand in the right position. So when I move and I step to the corner, I do that tearing. I say, okay, I'm out of the way of the gun. I can see, I can size up the situation. I'm not in my own way. Then I have a power move through here to catch that break on the arm. So let's work that from this angle so we can see better. You got that in my hand and say, oh, hey, what's probably good. So when I sketch this, I move over here, and I'm out of my way so I can kick without going around myself. I'm not back here to have to go around myself. I have a clear line, I step through, and I catch this break. And when I do this, I don't want to leave him in place, because I saw this in a school here in Europe where the guy was working here and did a switch. But anyway, if I don't move him and he decides to drop right here, that knee is right in a bad position to drop that and put your pressure on me, and right, I'm the one that goes down with a busted leg. So I have to get him out of that zone. So what I did, when I move, I try to drive this guy, I'm trying to move him, I drive him away and get his weight shifted out over here. Okay, so this is what makes the technique work. There's a lot of backup mass and a lot of pressure to get this going. So it's all charging. So once again, I don't want to rotate, because I just lost balance right there just from a little pressure on his arm, and have to go around myself with no base to work from. So if I step out here and I get a good base, I can work different variations on the technique because I have clearance to move, you know, and give me my margin for error positions that we want to work. So again, back to the base move. When I step off, I catch my brake, catch my hammer, get on the gun, then I say my step through the gun, and then whatever you want to do, hit the barrel, take it into the crane, whatever you want to do is totally up to you. And you might get a gun out of the deal like one of my students in New Orleans got. He got a nice little automatic from a guy in the French Quarter that tried to stick him up. But this is you know, again, every move, you want to know why you did what you did, rules and principles, don't violate them. There's many, Mr. Park used to say, there's many ways to do a technique as long as you stay within the rules of Kenpo. It's only wrong or bad when you break the rules and put things in that could get you in trouble. So that's why it's so important to learn your rules and principles of motion. Okay, thank you. Okay, again, talking about, you know, weapons rules and principles and how you want to save time, and you can't take time when you're working with that. The saying is, the longer a weapon is in your opponent's hand, the more chance you have of being hurt with it. See, so we have techniques that are done for reasons to teach you rules and principles of motion, like in our Form 6, we hardly ever take the weapon away. Kenpo is a checking system, so we always check the weapon. We leave it with him and we check it. We keep checking it to burn in the checks, and you understand where your checks go. But naturally, in real life, you don't want to have that happen. See, so point this out. Carlos, Sergio, rather, excuse me. He's got the gun on me, and this is one from the front. So we have a technique. So if he stuck that out this far, I'd say, oh, that's great, because you give me a long handle, but it doesn't matter. See, so I'm going to step in and parry the gun out of the way, and if we're counting all the moves, I parry the gun out of the way, and I might slice the eyes, and I come in to grab the control of the hand, then I elbow the gun out to go into an eye poke, come back and try to get into a wrist lock position, step back and make sure the gun's turned away, get on the gun, pull, kick, check, and then bury the barrel. Well, there's a lot of time in there, and that's the base move as written. But he's got the gun an awful long time, and I say, I don't want to take that chance. So I say, okay, when he's got the gun, and his finger's in the trigger guard, I'm on the same base move, but I come in and I grab the gun. Now, we do this different ways, and gun familiarity is a good part of it. Like I used to shoot in competition. I've shot everything there is in competition, rifle, shotgun, pistol, all the different games that you play with it. And guns have been my hobby since I was a kid. And we talk about what can happen here, and you're always ready for the gun to go off. We say, you know, if the gun goes off and scares you and you lose the technique, that's silly to me. I say it should surprise you if the gun doesn't go off. You're always ready to hear the gun go off. See? So it won't surprise you at all. You say, oh, I thought it was going to go off for sure. But when we grab the gun, it's an automatic. When there's one shell in the barrel, the slide has to cycle to eject the spent round and feed a new one. Well, if you can keep that shell from coming out of there, it's a single shot. It'll call double feed and be a club. An empty gun is a club. So when we grab over the top to cover the ejection port so the shell can't come out, and so it'll double feed and won't work. Now we have an 1/8 inch wide here front sight, and if that cycles, which is going to cycle some, it might cut a little groove. You have a sight cut groove in your hand, but you probably won't even feel it, but that is something that can happen, but still you've disabled the gun. But anyway, when we make this move, we come in and grab this. You'll notice when I turn this back, his finger is in the trigger guard. And I do this hard and fast and jerky. I break his finger, and he pulls the trigger himself. Mr. Parker used to call this self-inflicted wounds. He shot himself, see? Especially when you pull this, see, that's what you get. See? So we do it always slowly, and I'll work this one-handed so you can see this. When we make the chopping pair and you come over and you grab the gun, you'll notice when this finger, I'm going to get up higher on the gun, slides through, that it puts the finger in the trigger guard, and you just jerk back on this, you're going to break his finger real good, and the gun might go off. But what you want to understand here is keep the gun horizontal. That is what gets the finger in position for the break. A lot of people do this after you teach it to them, they turn the gun vertical. And when you turn it vertical, nothing happens. Until I get the gun past that, which you can't really do. See, so there's a big difference in turning vertical and have nothing happen compared to horizontal when it happens right now. Okay. So again, to see this, if I turn this vertical, and again he decides to use the other hand, okay, he can and won't even think about it because he feels no pain from this at all. Okay. And that's why, again, we don't want to turn this vertical. Plus, we're going to maybe pass in front of the barrel and get shot anyway. So we keep this horizontal. You get that bind and the break on the finger right away. Okay. So to work it, let's come to the front. To work all the same basic motion. You got to send it all good, even where it belongs. So I come and catch this move, I get the pull out and the check, I rip this back, make my kick, and then bury that barrel again. Okay. Sticking this hand in is your choice of whether you want to check or not. I always don't like to do it until the gun is away, because if you did this and you went and it went off right here, you could shoot yourself in the hand. And that happened to a friend of mine in our old shooting club. When I started combat shooting, I used to wear cross draw. And this just goes into weapon familiarity again. I have a cross draw, and your hands above your shoulders. And when you do this, you do this, and to get into the position of your gun, you don't want to go underneath. It's just not natural. And he had a hole through his hand. You can see daylight through there where it healed up. And he shot himself in the hand. That's why a lot of the guys, I think some clubs might even made it illegal, but not to use cross draw because of that. So you couldn't pass any portion of your body in front of the gun. And this brings to mind, again, rules and principles of motion. Being a combat shooter, I've taught people to use martial arts principles in their shooting to make them much faster and better. You can see on the YouTube what people are capable of doing is just totally mind-boggling. Like there's one on there, if you look at fast shooting, there's Jerry Mikulak in there, and Jerry's from our old club in New Orleans that I used to shoot with many times, and he's the fastest revolver shooter in the world. He can draw or just shoot 6 shots in a target, reload a revolver, and shoot 6 shots again in 2-point-something seconds, under 3 seconds. It's just totally amazing. It's a blur, but it shows you what repetition and practice can do. When I used to shoot against Jerry, in the plate matches, I would tell Jerry that he couldn't start to draw until I started shooting, and he still finished and waiting for me to finish to get back to the line. It's amazing. If you watch him on the TV, you'll see that. But that's what that is all about is the economy of motion. So when we're working this, when you get in, I want to make sure this is out of his hand before I put my check in, and then put my kick in. So timing is important here. If you shoot yourself, you say, oh, I didn't have control of the gun or away from him before I put that hand in position. Okay. So this is just other little things to think about. Okay, I want to add here some principles I see violated a lot or people don't think about with the two-man techniques. And we have a principle, we have two-man, you need more lag time. We say the two-man techniques are just the one-man techniques with the minors kicked out and power principles change sometimes. Bring a couple of guys in here to talk about this. A technique like ramming the eagle. It's very common to see this. Let me put Carlos in the middle here. I'm going to work what I see a lot of people do with the ramming the eagle. We'll do it first and then I'll talk about it. So, okay, there's a guy behind is grabbing, a guy coming in the front with the right punch. So he comes in with a punch. And you notice what I was doing here, standing here patiently waiting for the technique to happen. So, you'll never see that in a movie. You'll never see that in a movie. There's action going all the time. Action, you know, and then the longer the fight scene, you'll see more screw-ups. Like I noticed in one of some famous, you know, martial arts movies, or people, that if you look in the long fight scene, you'll see a lot of dead time or things that, oh, they're there waiting for the guy an hour ahead of time. So we change our power principles in the move. Now, to point this out, with one man, I might not want to move the person. But for two men, I will, and that's what we did in Flashing Mace earlier. So let me work this from the best angle. You come from here. Just Flashing Mace. No. He's coming in. So I work Flashing Mace. I said, okay, when I do this move, I don't want him to move. I want him to stay right here. So I hit and I drop him down because he's going to be here to hit. And then I can do what I want to do, make my spin kick, whatever, because he is there. But if I have two men, I can't afford that. So I need working time. If you notice when I did the technique, let's you do the technique again. Same exact way you did it before. So I come in with a punch, and he does nothing really to move, so I'm standing here patiently waiting, and his last move is set up here because I am right here and I did not move. And the kick fits, and the kick fits. Okay. But that is highly unrealistic. If he did that same thing again, do it again. Wait with me. Okay, that's okay. Didn't do a whole lot. Maybe didn't do much here. Didn't do much there. And here I am taking him out because I'm right there. Okay. So this is what you want to think about. See, so we change our power principle. Let's work this long way. A little bit of angle this way. Here. When he comes in with his punch and I drop back to kick my break and I knock him out of the seating, when I come through, this is a horizontal line of force. This is horizontal. I popped this move in the Flashing Mace because I want him to stay here and drop him down. But now I have two guys I have him to think about. So this horizontal line, I keep it moving with three lines of force to move him. This is a horizontal line, this is a horizontal line, and this is a horizontal line. So I go 1, 2, 3, and I move him out of the picture. I get him away to give me lag time to do the technique. Then when he comes in, I make the technique, but now the other end's coming in already, and oh, when it does, he walks into the shot, and there's no person standing around waiting their turn. I tell people this is what I look for and how the techniques were laid out in the first place when I judge a self-defense routine at a tournament. I look for people standing around waiting their turn. You know, this is something that's been joked about on the internet. Like I've learned something about kung fu movies that the next man can't attack until the first guy's down. So, you know, things like that, yeah, you really see that a lot. See that in, you know, the Bruce Lee movies, everything. If 2 or 3 guys all jumped on Bruce at the same time, there wouldn't be not a whole lot he could do about it. See? So we learn how to give yourself time, get them out of the way. Give yourself time. That's why in our two-man techniques, every man attacks you twice, sometimes 3 times. You get him out of the picture, then he comes back in. But he has to regain that time, and how much distance is how far you send him away, and you regulate that force. Hopefully he's gone out of the picture, but if he's not, you have lag time. He won't be very close to take one little short step and then paste you or whatever. So just things to think about for your two-man techniques. Thank you. Okay, I hope you got a little something out of that. I'd like to thank Carlos and Sergio Hodar and Ingmar Johansson from Sweden for being my dummies here, and Again, hope you got something out of this, guys.